Today we're going to talk about another molecule. We're going to talk about fats and lipids. You'll notice these are the same learning targets you've seen before. You're going to need to be able to describe the function, the building blocks, describe the structure and identify an example of fats, and then explain how to test for them. Fats is your title. We also call fats lipids. So if you hear the word lipid, just know that it means fat as well. So sometimes we'll use them interchangeably. Take a look at these molecules. These are all pictures of fats, right? So what elements or what letters do you see in all of these pictures? Did you say C, H, and O? If you did, you are correct. Sometimes they only have C's and H's, but a lot of times they have C's, H's, and O's. So we say cho. You'll notice this is similar to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates have C's, H's, and O's. Remember, carbohydrates were hexagons. In this case, they're not really hexagons. We'll talk about the shape in a second. What is a fat made out of, or a lipid? Okay, typically we have one glycerol molecule and 3 fatty acids. What I want you to write from this slide is just the pink. You don't have to draw any of these molecules, okay? You'll notice when we put these 3 fatty acids together with this guy, it kind of looks like a really long, really bad letter E. That's one of the shapes that a fat or a lipid can take. So they're often an E-shaped. Sometimes they're just a long chain, but a lot of times we see this 1, 2, 3, this kind of letter E, 1, 2, 3. And I know it's a little bit tricky to see, and it's not really a letter E, but usually we see these 3 parts attached to this one long skinny part. So this is one way you can differentiate between carbohydrates and fats, right? They both have C's, H's, and O's. The difference is that carbohydrates are going to have the hexagon. Fats are not. So what do we need fats for? We use them for lots of things. We use them for cell membranes. Remember we talked about phospholipids? Okay, you'll see the word lipid in phospholipid. Remember those phospholipids that were the things that made up the cell membrane? They had a head and 2 tails. So fats or lipids help make up cell membranes. They also help protect your organs. They provide kind of like a cushion. They insulate. Okay, people who don't have a lot of body fat tend to get cold really easily. People who have more body fat tend to get hot pretty easily. Animals and organisms use fat to insulate them, especially animals that lived in cold environments like the Arctic. Penguins and polar bears, they have fat as insulation to help them stay warm. The main use for fat in organisms, and especially humans, is storing energy. One of the main uses when we think about food molecules. So when we eat foods that are high in fat, that fat is stored. And that's why if you eat a lot of calories or a lot of extra food, you put on weight. It's storing energy, okay? And that energy is being stored in case you can't find food later or there's a famine, right? That doesn't typically happen nowadays, but in the times of hunters and gatherers, that was pretty common. They didn't know when they would get their next meal or when they would be able to hunt down their next animal. So it was really important for them to store up that energy. Take a look at this picture. Write down 2 foods you see in this picture. These are foods that contain fats. So some examples found in a lot of oil, nuts, meat. Not all meat has fat, but a lot of meat does. This is salmon here. Okay, a lot of red meat has more fat in it. Dark meat has fat in it. So nuts, avocados, oils, those all have fats in them. All right, let's take a look at these pictures. Which of these pictures represents a fat? Remember, fats have C's, H's, and O's, and they typically look like a long chain or a letter E. Basically, they don't have a hexagon. All right, so this guy, letter B, is the fat. We see over here, this has CHON. Fats can't have an N. This is a hexagon, so this is a carbohydrate. And this doesn't have a C and it has a P, so it doesn't have the right letters, right? CHO or CHO are the right letters. You try another one. Which of these is a fat? A, B, C, or D? Did you say A? If you did, you were correct. B, this is a hexagon, right? So although it has CHO, this is a carbohydrate. This is also a carbohydrate. This is CHON, so this is going to be a protein. So only A is a fat. How do we test for fats? It's highly scientific. There are some other more complex tests that use chemicals, but we're just going to talk about a simple one. We use paper. You can use a brown paper bag, like from a grocery bag, or just a regular piece of paper. You may have noticed that when you get like a bag of French fries, the bag that it comes in has these grease spots on it, okay? So what we do is we take some of the food, whatever that food is, we wipe it on the paper, and then we let that paper dry. If there's fat present, we'll see a greasy mark. And when we hold that mark up to the light, we'll kind of be able to see through it. If there's no fat, we're not really going to see any greasy mark. We might see this like a color, okay? So let's say we're doing broccoli, right? Broccoli, if we wipe broccoli on here, it's probably going to leave a green stain. But the key here is, can we see through it when we hold it up to the light, right? So those greasy marks are going to be see-through. And you can do this at home if you have vegetable oil or Crisco shortening. You can put a little bit on a piece of paper, put some water on a piece of paper, let them dry, and then hold them up to the light. The oil's not really going to dry because it doesn't have water. It's not going to evaporate, but the water will. So let's do an example. Elsa, yes, I was inspired by Frozen here, wipes some food on a paper bag and she holds it up to the light. Which of these foods has the most fat? So she's got water here, butter, she's got apple, milk, and tofu. And it looks like she might not have let them dry completely because water shouldn't have any spot, but regardless, we can still see which has the most fat. Did you say butter? So butter probably has the most fat. How do we know that? Because it's the most see-through mark on this paper. So that's how we test for fats.